"Watch this," my mother said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the murmurs of the yacht club deck like a knife through silk. I looked up from my tea, confused, just in time to see her wrist turn. The steaming latte in her hand tilted, then poured directly onto my lap. The heat was shocking, immediate, searing through the fabric of my blazer and onto my skin. I gasped, freezing in place as the dark liquid spread, staining the vintage wool, dripping onto the pristine white tablecloth. Around us, the polite chatter died instantly. My brother, Tyler, already had his phone out, the red recording light blinking. My sister, Jessica, covered her mouth, but her eyes were laughing. "That's how we treat trash," my mother said, setting the empty cup down with a delicate clink. She smiled, waiting for me to scream, to cry, to make the scene she desperately wanted. But I didn't. I just looked at the stain, then at her, and realized something with absolute clarity. This wasn't just a burn, it was an exit strategy. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had a family member mistreat you because they didn't know your true worth? I want to read your story. 15 minutes earlier, the deck of the Bayview Yacht Club had felt suffocatingly perfect. The morning sun glinted off the polished chrome of the docked boats, and the air smelled of salt water mixed with expensive perfume. Waiters in starched white uniforms moved silently between tables, refilling water glasses and removing crumbs with silver scrapers. My mother, Patricia, sat at the head of our table, her posture rigid, her smile practiced. She was holding court, ensuring everyone within earshot knew just how well the family was doing. "Tyler is closing on 3 luxury penthouses this month," she announced loudly to a passing acquaintance. Tyler leaned back in his chair, adjusting his silk tie, looking bored and important. Beside him, Jessica was busy staging a photo of her avocado toast for her followers, carefully arranging her sunglasses and mimosa to look effortless. I sat at the far end, trying to make myself small. I was wearing my favorite blazer, a vintage wool piece I'd found at a consignment shop in Paris years ago. It was structured, elegant, and timeless. To my family, however, it was just used clothes. "Still wearing that old thing, Chloe?" Jessica asked without looking up from her phone. "You know, if you need money for new clothes, I have some PR packages I'm not going to use. It's not high-end, but it's better than, whatever that is." "I like this blazer," I said quietly. "It smells like mothballs and failure," Tyler muttered, snickering. "Speaking of money, Chloe, we need to talk. I've got this new venture, import-export for high-end automotive parts. I need $50,000 for the initial inventory. Mom said you've been saving up from your little gardening hobby." My little gardening hobby was actually a groundbreaking research facility focused on drought-resistant crops, but correcting him felt futile. Data does not convince those who refuse to read the report. They didn't want to know about my work. They just wanted to know if it could pay for their lifestyle. "I can't invest, Tyler," I said, keeping my voice steady. "My money is tied up right now." "Tied up in what?" Patricia snapped, her socialite mask slipping. "More dirt?" "Chloe, we are trying to build a legacy here. Your brother has a real business opportunity. You need to stop being so selfish and support the family. We all make sacrifices. I've sacrificed everything to give you this life, this access." "I didn't ask for this access," I said, "and I'm not giving Tyler money to lose on another scheme." The table went silent. Patricia's eyes narrowed. It wasn't the refusal that angered her. It was the audacity. She looked at me, really looked at me, and I realized something that made my stomach turn. They didn't hate me because I was the failure of the family. They hated me because I was stable. My quiet, boring life was a mirror reflecting their chaos, their debt, their desperate need for validation. I was the control group in their experiment of excess, and my existence proved that their way wasn't the only way. They needed me to be trash so they could feel like treasure. "Is that so?" Patricia said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. She reached for her latte, her hand trembling slightly with rage. "You think you're better than us? You think you can just sit there in your thrift store rags and judge us?" "I'm not judging anyone," I said. "I'm just saying no." "Well," she said, standing up slowly. "Let me show you exactly what we think of your no." The heat was relentless. It wasn't just a warm spill, it was a scalding insult. Soaking through my clothes, burning my skin, marking me. I could feel the eyes of every person on the deck burning into me, a mix of pity and morbid curiosity. Tyler was grinning now, zooming in with his phone camera to capture the exact moment I broke. Jessica was already typing a caption. Breaking down was not an option. Panic is a variable I learned to eliminate in the lab years ago. Instead, I took a slow, deliberate breath. The pain was sharp, grounding me in the reality of the moment. I looked down at the coffee spreading across my lap, then up at my mother. Her smile was tight, triumphant, waiting for the tears, the pleading, the scene she could use to paint me as the unstable one. "Are you done?" I asked. My voice was calm, almost bored. Patricia blinked, her smile faltering. "Excuse me?" "I asked if you were done performing," I said. I reached into my bag, ignoring the sticky dampness of my sleeve, and pulled out my wallet. I didn't look at Tyler or Jessica. They were irrelevant noise in the system. I signaled the waiter, who had been hovering nearby, looking terrified. "Check, please," I said. "We're not finished," Patricia hissed. "Sit down." "Chloe, you're making a scene." "No, you made a scene," I corrected her. "I'm just paying for it." The waiter dropped the leather folder on the table as if it were a bomb. I opened it. $75. For 4 coffees, a fruit plate nobody touched, and the privilege of being assaulted. I pulled out my card, the black metal one I usually kept hidden in a separate pocket, and placed it inside. The weight of it felt good in my hand. Solid. Real. "I'm paying for everyone," I told the waiter. "Add a 30% tip. You deserve it for having to deal with this table." I signed the receipt with a steady hand, the ink flowing smoothly despite the tremor of adrenaline in my veins. I didn't look at the total. It didn't matter. This wasn't about the cost of the coffee. It was about the transaction. I stood up, picking up my bag. The coffee dripped from the hem of my blazer onto the deck, a dark period at the end of a very long sentence. $75, I said, looking at each of them in turn. "That's cheap. What are you talking about?" Tyler sneered, though he had lowered his phone slightly. "That's the cost of my freedom," I said. "Consider this my severance package. I'm resigning from this family." "You can't resign from family," Patricia scoffed, crossing her arms. "You'll be back when you need money. You always are." "I never needed your money, Mother," I said softly. "I just needed a mom. But I see now that position has been vacant for a long time." I turned and walked away. There was no need to look back. The data points were all there, confirming the hypothesis that I was better off alone. I walked through the silent yacht club, past the staring faces, past the judgment, and out into the clean, salty air. The coffee stain was already drying, setting into the fabric, but I didn't care. It was a badge of honor. It was the receipt for the most important purchase of my life. I walked to my car, a beige 1990 Volvo 240. It was built like a tank, reliable and completely unimpressive. Tyler called it the Grandma Mobile. I called it safety. I unlocked the door, slid into the familiar worn leather seat, and finally exhaled. The smell of old upholstery and peppermint was grounding. I started the engine, the low rumble comforting in its predictability. As I pulled out of the marina parking lot, I saw Tyler and Jessica still on the deck, huddled over a phone, probably editing the video. They didn't even look up. They had no idea. They saw a girl in thrift store clothes driving a 30-year-old car. They didn't see the woman who had spent the last 5 years building Verita Agritech, a biotechnology firm specializing in drought-resistant crop yields. They didn't know that just last week, our valuation had hit $240 million. They didn't know that the gardening hobby Tyler mocked was actually a massive hydroponic research facility I owned outright. I drove through the city, past the high-end boutiques where Jessica spent her allowance, past the luxury dealerships where Tyler pretended to be a mogul. I thought about the wire transfers I'd sent over the years. $50,000 to cover Patricia's unexpected tax bill, $20,000 to bail Tyler out of his last failed crypto venture, all sent anonymously through a shell company labeled Angel Investment Grant or Loyalty Bonus. I had been the silent partner in their lives, the invisible safety net they bounced on while calling me useless. I arrived at my home, a small, mid-century modern house tucked away in the hills, surrounded by trees. It wasn't a mansion, but it was mine, paid for in cash. The silence inside was beautiful. I stripped off the stained blazer and threw it in the hamper. I showered, scrubbing the smell of burnt coffee from my skin until I felt clean again. I made myself a cup of herbal tea and sat by the window, watching the sunset. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. I picked it up, a notification from Instagram. I opened it. There it was, the video. Tyler had posted it 15 minutes ago. The caption read, "When the black sheep tries to sit at the captain's table. Some people just don't belong in polite society. Number trash, number know your place, number yacht club life." It already had 300 likes. The comments were starting to roll in. Yikes, talk about awkward. Is she wearing a men's jacket? Lol, your mom is a savage. Then a text from Patricia popped up. You need to apologize to your brother. You embarrassed him in front of potential investors. And you owe me for dry cleaning my tablecloth. Call me when you're ready to grow up. I stared at the screen. No remorse. No hesitation. They honestly believed they were the victims. They thought they had just put me in my place. I set the mug down. The anger I felt wasn't hot anymore. It was cold, crystalline. They had handed me the weapon, loaded it, and pointed it at themselves. Reply? No. Engagement only boosts the algorithm of their narcissism. I simply took a screenshot of the post, saved the text message, and opened my laptop. It was time to let the world see what trash really looked like. I didn't post a defense. I didn't write a long emotional caption explaining my side. I just let the ecosystem do what it does best. Expose the invasive species. Within 2 hours, the video had migrated from Tyler's Instagram to TikTok. Someone had reposted it with the caption, "Rich family bullies sister." Wait for the coffee pour. By 9 p.m., it had 1 million views. The comments shifted from mockery to outrage. Did her mom just assault her? Why are they filming? This is psychotic. That poor girl just took it. She looks so done. Then, at 10:45 p.m., the notification came through. A user named @EcoWarrior88 tagged me in a comment. Wait, is that the girl from the Forbes cover? The agritech genius? A reply followed almost instantly from @TechInvestigate. Meg. It is. Look at the blazer. They posted a side-by-side photo. On the left was a screenshot from Tyler's video. Me. Stoic. Coffee dripping from my lapel. On the right was the cover of Forbes 30 Under 30 from 3 months ago. I was wearing the exact same vintage wool blazer, arms crossed, looking confident and powerful. The headline read, "The Billion-Dollar Harvest, Chloe Vance and the Future of Food." The internet exploded. The narrative flipped so fast it was dizzying. It wasn't family shame's slob sister anymore. It was narcissistic family assault's tech titan. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Not with texts from my family, they were strangely silent now, but with alerts from news outlets, tech blogs, and Twitter threads dissecting the video. Imagine calling a self-made multimillionaire trash while begging her for money. Her outfit costs more than their souls. That's vintage Yves Saint Laurent. The dignity she showed. Queen behavior. I scrolled through the comments, feeling a strange sense of detachment. They were fighting for me. Thousands of strangers were defending me with a ferocity my own blood had never shown. They dissected every frame. They found Tyler's LinkedIn luxury car sales associate. They found Patricia's charity board listings. They found Jessica's influencer page, mostly paid partnerships for teeth whitening. And then, the pièce de résistance. A viral TikTok from a former employee of my parents' hospitality group. I worked for these people. They haven't paid vendors in months. They're broke. That's why they're so mad. They needed her money. The puzzle pieces clicked into place for millions of people at once. The wealthy family was a facade. The trash daughter was the bank. I closed my laptop. I didn't need to say a word. The world had just handed my family a mirror, and for the first time, they were being forced to look at their own ugly reflection. The social media storm was loud, but money speaks a quieter, more lethal language. 2 days after the video went viral, I received a call from my lawyer, David. "It's about your parents' merger," he said. "The one with Omni Group. Did it go through?" I asked, though the outcome was already a statistical probability in my mind. "No. It's dead." The board of directors saw the video. Specifically, the part where your mother assaults you. They invoked the character clause in the acquisition contract. It allows them to pull out of the deal if the sellers engage in conduct that brings reputational risk to the brand. I sat back in my chair. The merger was their lifeline. Patricia and my father had leveraged everything on this sale going through. Without that cash injection, their hospitality business, already hemorrhaging money, would collapse under the weight of its debts. "They're ruined, aren't they?" I asked. "Completely," David confirmed. "The banks will call in the loans by the end of the week. They'll lose the business, the house, the cars, everything." I thanked him and hung up. I felt a strange hollowness. I hadn't wanted their destruction, not really. I had just wanted them to stop. But in their arrogance, they had built a house of cards on a foundation of cruelty, and one viral breeze had knocked it all down. 3 days later, the buzzing started at my security gate. The monitor displayed a pathetic sight. Patricia was there, her makeup streaked, her perfect hair windblown. Tyler stood behind her, looking small and defeated, his expensive suit rumpled. Jessica was pacing, checking her phone, probably seeing her follower count plummet. They pressed the buzzer again. Walking to the intercom panel felt like approaching a contamination zone. I pressed the button. "Chloe!" Patricia's voice crackled through the speaker, desperate and shrill. "Thank God. You have to let us in. We need to talk. It's an emergency." "I'm busy," I said. "Don't you dare do this to me." She screamed, the facade cracking. "We are losing everything. The deal is off. The bank is taking the house. You have money. We know you have money. You need to fix this. You owe us." "I owe you?" I repeated, my voice cold. "I owe you nothing. I paid my debt at the yacht club. Remember? $75. Please," Tyler begged, stepping forward. "Chloe, come on. I lost my job. No dealership will hire me. They say I'm a liability. You can't let this happen to family." I looked at them on the grainy screen. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry for what it cost them. "You aren't my family," I said. "You're just people who used to know my name. Go away." "We're not leaving," Patricia shrieked. "I'm your mother. You are nothing without me." "Actually," I said, leaning closer to the microphone, "I'm the only reason you lasted this long. I paid the taxes you forgot. I covered the payroll you missed. I was the silent partner you treated like garbage. But the partnership is dissolved." I released the button. I watched them for a moment longer, screaming at a metal box, pounding on a gate that wouldn't open. Then I turned off the monitor. The screen went black. The silence returned. It was finished. The end didn't come with a bang, but with a quiet, legal whisper. 6 months after the merger collapsed, and the bank seized my parents' house, Grandma Eleanor passed away in her sleep. She was 92. The funeral was small. Patricia and the others were there, looking diminished. They wore old clothes that didn't quite fit, stripped of the designer armor they used to hide behind. They didn't speak to me. They couldn't. The restraining orders I'd filed after the gate incident made sure of that. A week later, the will was read. I sat in the lawyer's office, expecting nothing. I hadn't seen Grandma Eleanor much in the last year, busy as I was with Verida's expansion, but when the attorney, Mr. Henderson, began to read, the room went still. "To my daughter Patricia and my grandchildren Tyler and Jessica, I leave my love and the hope that they find their own way. That was it. No money, no property, just a sentence. Patricia gasped, clutching her chest. Tyler looked like he'd been punched. To my granddaughter Chloe, Mr. Henderson continued, looking directly at me, I leave the remainder of my estate, including my investment portfolio, my home, and all liquid assets, totaling $4,800,000. The silence was deafening. Why? Jessica whispered, tears streaming down her face. Why her? Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. Mrs. Vance included a personal note. Would you like me to read it? I nodded, unable to speak. Chloe didn't ask for my money. She didn't wait for me to die. She built her own life. And when she was treated with cruelty, she responded with character. Money cannot buy dignity, but dignity deserves to be rewarded. I walked out of that office nearly $5 million richer. But the money wasn't the point. The point was that someone had seen me. Someone had been watching the whole time, quietly keeping score, and finally, the ledger was balanced. I didn't keep the money. I didn't need it. I used the entire inheritance to launch a scholarship fund for first-generation students in agricultural science. I named it the Eleanor Vance Grant. It was the legacy she deserved, one of growth, not greed. A year later, I sat in my favorite coffee shop. I was wearing a new blazer, crisp, clean, and paid for with my own success. The barista set a cappuccino down in front of me. Steam curled off the foam in delicate ribbons. I stared at it for a moment, remembering the heat, the stain, the humiliation. It felt like a lifetime ago. A different life, lived by a different girl. Patricia was living in a small apartment now, working retail. Tyler was selling used cars at a lot on the edge of town. Jessica had rebranded as a budget lifestyle blogger, trying to spin their downfall into relatable content. They were still hustling, still performing, still trapped in the game. I took a sip of the coffee. It was perfect. Warm, rich, and comforting. I wasn't the girl in the stained coat anymore. I was free. And looking back, I realized the coffee hadn't stained me at all. It had washed them away.